it's tough because guys don't know how many minutes they're going to play. Jaron played 2 minutes and came out.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily podcast on fantasy basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast brought to you by Fantrax and Basketball Monster. And today's Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast is also brought to you by Dean Vasic. Dean, thank you for sponsoring the show and being a Patreon sponsor. If you want to be one of those Patreon sponsors, head to patreon.com/redrock_bball. My name is Josh Lloyd, and as always, you can find me on Twitter at redrock_bball. Same as the Patreon address. What a coincidence. Go and follow me there on Twitter. We've got a lot today, 8 games on Friday, 12 games on Saturday. So
let's get to it.
Just a quick update on the iTunes review contest. As I have mentioned plenty of times, iTunes doesn't just feed the reviews in or feed the numbers in to me in terms of reviews that comes through. That they approve them. So we are currently sitting at 3 below the target. So we are almost at number 750. I thought we'd get there today, but hasn't been there. But if you haven't entered, there theoretically still is time to get in for that contest of winning an NBA jersey and a subscription to Basketball Monster. Go and leave your review on iTunes, take a screenshot and send it to me as well. And I should be announcing that winner on tomorrow's podcast. There's a good chance that review has already come in, number 750. There's also a chance that it hasn't. So if you want to find a way to support the podcast, go and do that and get yourself in the running for a pretty good prize, I believe. Let's talk about all this action because, again, there's a lot of stuff to talk about. The monstrous line of the night. Brad Beal of the Washington Wizards. It was an overtime game, so yes, he had an extra 5 minutes to play, but he was fantastic, scoring 16 points in the fourth quarter. Ended with 38, had 10 boards, 4 assists, 5 triples, 1 steal, 1 block. Went 13 of 24 from the field and hit all 7 of his free throws. Beal has been pretty amazing this season. He's just outside the top 30, but amazingly over the last 2 months, he's the 17th ranked player, and over the last month, he's the 10th ranked player in that time, averaging 27, 4, and 3 with 3.5 triples and 1.3 steals, and shooting the absolute lights out at 53% over that time. In fact, for the year, he's got a true shooting of 61% at 48 from the field, 41 from 3, and 82 from the line. This is the year that Brad Beal has taken that step. He's stayed healthy, despite the really large minutes increase and the crazy minutes he was playing to begin the season. And as I always say, players are injury prone until they're not. And at this point, you give the benefit of the doubt to Beal that he's worked through that issue with his leg. The high minutes still scare me, obviously, because we've seen that 3 times happen through his career. Play big minutes, go down with a stress fracture. That hasn't happened so far, and he's taken a significant step forward. Just another one of those ones that when people want to throw contract years at you in terms of players, throw Brad Beal. He got paid and then took his game not only to a new level, but about 4 levels higher. And I know that he wasn't injured, but still, you look at what Beal is doing this year, like all his per 36 numbers are pretty much up. He's scoring 4 more points per 36 minutes. He's hitting an extra 0.8 threes per 36 minutes. More assists, more blocks, same steals, slightly less rebounds, but the shooting numbers is what's really helping him as well. He has been fantastic this season and a really worthy investment if you did make that late draft pick, even with those injury concerns, which are obviously real. And I'm not fully ready to wipe them off yet because it still could happen. But if he is fine all through this season and has no leg issues, no stress fracture issues, I'm ready to forget about it. We've seen it with Drew Holiday, who's 2 years removed from that situation and hasn't had that sort of a problem. So, give Beal the whole year of not having an issue with the stress fractures, then I'm fine to move on from that as being a narrative on his career. Let's look at the waiver wire line of the night. Corey Joseph of the Toronto Raptors. A big night from Joseph, 15 points, but the real value comes from not the 2 boards, it comes from the 8 assists, it comes from the 4 steals, it comes from the fact that he went 6 of 11 from the field, and he was a perfect 2 of 2 from the line. Joseph, over the last 2 weeks, which is basically post-All-Star without Lowry, is the 90th ranked player. He's still owned in under 40% of leagues, which I could guess makes sense given that many teams have been eliminated from contention now. Yeah, Joseph is putting up 12, 3.5, and 5. He's hitting a 3. He's getting 1.3 steals. And probably, maybe not most importantly, but pretty close to it, is the fact that he's going at 47% from the field and 89% from the line. That real efficiency, or more to the fact that he's not hurting you in field goal percentage, which can be a real issue with point guards that you pick off the waiver wire. He's not hurting you there. And the 5 assists and the 12 points. He's not going to be a big guy with threes, but you're going to get assists. You're getting efficiency, and you're getting steal numbers, and they're very much worthwhile. And his role's not going anywhere. Delon Wright's not taking it off him this year. Fred VanVleet's not taking it off him. His role is not going anywhere. His minutes aren't going anywhere. He's not going to be a big usage guy. But sometimes usage gets overvalued. He's got a usage of just 18%, which is less than average. But he helps in the other areas, the passing, the defensive numbers. And that's the sort of value that Corey Joseph is putting up. So if he's around your waiver wire, you absolutely have to be considering him as a solid top 100 guy here for the majority of the rest of the stretch, I would imagine. Let's look now at the young gun of the night.
Pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yep. Nikola Jokic was back after missing 2 games with an illness yesterday. I didn't think he'd play. The news coming out of Denver wasn't positive with his illness. It was like he was struggling to get out of bed. Woke up feeling fine, apparently. Miraculous recovery. And what I did say yesterday did come true, because what they said was, if he plays, he's going to play limited minutes. Well, he did play limited minutes. He played 27 minutes. Didn't matter. He still had 21, 10, and 7. He had 4 steals, a block, and a triple, and had 80% shooting from the field. This guy is ridiculous. He's ridiculous. What can I say? Over the last 2 weeks, he's the 3rd ranked player. Over the last 2 months, he's the 9th ranked player. Over the last 3 months, he's the 10th ranked player. He's not escaping the top 12 next year, or he's not escaping the top 15 next year. It's going to be pretty hard for him to escape the first round, I reckon. I think majority of you guys listening, like if you have the option of Jokic or Paul George or Jokic or Lillard or Jokic or Lowry, you're taking Jokic nearly every time, aren't you? Surely you are. I think that's the way that most people would lean, but it's going to be interesting. In some leagues, you will be able to get him at if you say pick 10th in the first round and then back to you at whatever pick that is, pick 15, you might even be there. And that would be a ridiculous snare at the end of the at the start of the second round. He has been ludicrously good this season, and again, look at how low the minutes were in this game. For the year, he's the 20th ranked player and only 27 minutes a game. He's ridiculous. He's really, really ridiculous. He is so good at offensive basketball. Defense, he's not great, not terrible, but not great. Let's look at the dud of the night, and that is another Washington Wizards player, Marcin Gortat, who had 2 points. He had 9 boards, he had an assist, and he went 1 of 3 from the field. It was the second game out of his last 3 that he has struggled, or he hasn't gotten to 22 minutes. He played 22 in this one. He had 19 2 games ago. He had an odd 33-minute game wedged in the middle there, but his last 4 games in terms of minutes played, 22, 33, 19, 22. With the emergence of Jan Mahinmi, with the Wizards going with more small ball, putting Bojan Bogdanovic in and playing Markieff Morris at center, with the random games that Jason Smith comes out of nowhere and goes from DNP to 20 minutes, Gortat's value is drying up at a pretty significant rate. If you want to move on from Gortat, there's no issue there. He's the 155th ranked player over the last month. He's going nowhere but down. If you need to get someone else in, do it. It's not getting better for Gortat. Look, there'll be the occasional game like last game where he put up that 32 minutes and you go, okay, what's happening here? As a general rule, he's going to be limited to 25, 26 minutes a night and not really be a useful contributor for the majority of fantasy teams, I don't believe, just because of the presence of Gortat, the addition of Bogdanovic, which is impacting him as they can change what they do and go smaller a lot more of the time. And that's something that we do have to be aware of just in terms of these guys and their value moving forward. So Gortat, it was a good run while it lasted. This was always on the cards. And here it is, right at the most inopportune time of the season, the fantasy playoffs. But Gortat, unfortunately, consider him expendable in majority leagues. Well, not majority leagues, majority of standard leagues, I guess, is a better way of me phrasing that. All right, let's get into these games. We'll talk about them in more detail. It's always the best time to do that. The Orlando Magic and the Charlotte Hornets. I don't want to talk about this game too much because the Hornets just really gave it to them. Really it was a massive turkey slapping. They beat them by 40 points, 121 to 81. The best thing I can say about the Magic is that their best three contributors were their best three core pieces, Alfred Payton, Aaron Gordon, and Evan Fournier. Lord Alfred had 8, 2, and 12. Gordo had 20 and 5, and Fournier had 14 points with a pair of assists. If Gordon or Payton aren't owned in your league, they have to be the same as Fournier. Not much else to really talk about. Terry Ross stunk. He went scoreless, 0 points in 28 minutes. He did have the 2 steals. Where his value is coming from, obviously, is just going to be steals, and it's going to be threes, and it was looking like some points at one stage. That's sort of who he is. That's sort of what we've seen from him in Toronto. Obviously, his role is more stable here in Orlando. It doesn't mean his production is going to be consistent, but his role is more stable. In a 10-team league, you can do better in most cases. In a 12-team league, I guess it depends on who else is around there and what other stats you need, but a lot of the time, streaming for need is probably going to be a better option than Terry Ross. Bismack Biyombo was terrible, 7 and 10. He had 1 block. He hit all 3 of his shots. Cool. He went 1 of 8 from the free throw line. Abysmally bad there. He's just not a good player. Yeah, look, he's going to help in rebounds and blocks if Nikola Vucevic remains out, which it looks like he might miss a couple more, but that's not confirmed at this point. But yeah, he's far from a must-own guy. On the Charlotte side of things, they just took it easy. Kemba played 24 minutes and had 23 points with 5 triples. Nicola Batum had 15, 3, and 10 in big games. Marvin Williams was enormous. 12, 18, and 7 for Marv. He's a top 50 player over the last couple of months. His numbers over the last couple of months are better than the numbers that he put up last season when it was this big breakout. He has really turned the corner. His rebounding is up. His field goal percentage, which was like at 35%, I reckon, for the first month of the year, he is now at over 50% over the last month. He's blocking shots again, back over 1 block shot a game, hitting threes, grabbing boards, scoring, has to be owned. Really a tale of 2 halves for Williams this season. Putrid to begin the season. Couldn't hit a shot, couldn't block a shot, couldn't grab a board, couldn't hit a 3, couldn't do anything. Now he's doing them all in bigger quantities. And when Frank Kaminsky returns, yes, some of Marv Williams' minutes will drop off, but he still has to be owned for the time being. It was a good game to get some minutes into Christian Wood. He had 14 and 5 with 2 steals and a block in 16 minutes. But this was a game without Frank, without Miles Plumlee, and without Johnny O'Bryant. Not that O'Bryant's better than Wood, but that's another player who can play those positions. So if those guys were there, I think it would, and if it wasn't a blowout, we wouldn't have seen Wood getting the 16 minutes. But he's a name to watch for the deeper dynasty leagues. Brian Roberts got hot early, had 15 points in 24 minutes, 4 assists and 3 triples. Let's chalk that one up to a bit of fluke, while Cody Zeller had 6, 7, and 3 in 31 minutes. I still think that he should be owned, but it's not going to be a must-own situation. He would have played a lot more if this game had been somewhat competitive. Let's go on to the next game now. It's Toronto. They took on the Atlanta Hawks. The Hawks get the victory. I did mention this yesterday in the DFS portion, that I thought this was another opportunity for Dwayne Casey to give Jonas Valanciunas a go. I thought it would be more likely that he'd do it if Damari Carroll was out, but it turns out that wasn't the case. It also turns out, shockingly, that a player who is good should play. And everything that I've said about Valanciunas has been based on what Casey does and not what Valanciunas is as a player. I like Valanciunas as a player. I think he's a really good player, and I think he's been consistently downgraded, I won't say humiliated, but just incorrectly used by Dwayne Casey in Toronto for his entire career. The fact that he was playing like not one single fourth quarter minute and 19 minutes a game was ridiculously stupid. The last 2 games he's been back over 30. And that's where he should be most nights, in my opinion. He played 30 here, he had 11 and 12, he had 2 steals and 2 blocks. Now, it is a positive matchup for JV against Dwight Howard, a big, strong guy under the rim. That helps him. Dwight's not a guy who's going to pick and pop and start stretching it out, which Valanciunas does struggle with, I admit that. The next game that the Raptors play, they take on the Miami Heat on Saturday. So Hassan Whiteside's not doing any of that, so it could be another night where Casey goes, all right, we have to get 30 minutes back into Valanciunas. Or maybe he's realized that playing him with such few minutes while you're giving minutes to Patrick Patterson or Jakob Poeltl or crap like that, it's not really in the best interest of your team. Now, they didn't win here, so there's still room for maneuvering. If Valanciunas was dropped in your league and you've got a spot, I wouldn't hesitate grabbing him, especially for Saturday, where there is a chance that he gets another big roll, a 29, 30-minute roll. There's a chance of that. against Hassan Whiteside, but by no means is he locked into a role this size. I just don't have that full trust in Casey realising what he needs to do, but it is something that could happen. Damari Carroll played 33 minutes and had 11 and 7, but the defensive numbers were what brought it for him. 4 steals and 2 blocks for Damari Carroll. Great, it just doesn't happen often enough to consider him an ownable player. While Serge Ibaka had 18 points, that looks good. 2 threes, that looks good. But what else? 3 boards, 2 assists, 1 block. Yeah, not much else from Serge. Yeah, a little bit disappointing. 28, 8 and 6 for DeMar with 2 steals in his 37 minutes. So a pretty solid night from DeRozan. While Norm Powell's minutes continue to go backwards. Continues to be a crime, but it's happening. 18 minutes for Normie. 12 points, 4 boards, 3 steals. Pretty decent numbers, but still the minutes aren't there. A lot of people thought that with Lowry going down, we'd see more Norm, or even enough Norm to be a standard league guy, and that's clearly not the case. He's really just a deeper league guy and a dynasty type of player. Onto the Hawks, they made a change to their starting lineup. Tim Hardaway forced his way in. It looked like that would happen. I thought it might be at the expense of Kent Bazemore, but no, it was at the expense of Tabo. Timmy played 34 minutes, had 20 points, 2 boards, 6 assists, 2 steals, and 3 triples, and shot 62% from the field. Whenever he has these hot shooting nights, that obviously inflates his other numbers because it keeps him on the court longer. With the new move to keep him as starting and the trend of his minutes, he's a fine guy to own, but there will be ups and downs. But I've been really impressed with what Hardaway's done this season. Dennis Schroeder had 26, 6 and 5, while Paulie Millsap went 21, 6 and 4, and dropped in a 1-1 there as well. While Bazemore brought it defensively, Damari Carroll style, 2 steals and 2 blocks, and just the 7 points in his 28 minutes leave him as a defensive streamer and as a 14-team league sort of a player. As for Tabo, speaking of defensive streamers, he had 4 and 6 in 25 minutes, Cephalosha. Yeah, he was putting up really solid top 100 value in 30 minutes, but if he's getting 25 or so, I'm not sure that holding on to him in standard leagues is going to be the best way to go about that. Jose Calderon looks like he's replaced Malcolm Delaney in the rotation. 13 minutes for 2 points for Jose. He's impacting no leagues. Let's talk Indiana. They took on the Milwaukee Bucks and they got beaten pretty comfortably. Paulie George had 18, 11 and 6 with 3 steals. That's okay. The shooting wasn't great. And Jeff Teague,
My name is Jeff.
he had 17, 4 and 4 with 3 steals. A very efficient night from Teague there. Miles Turner really struggling. Just the 6 points in 33 minutes for Miles. He did have 3 steals. He did have 2 blocks. But over the last 2 weeks, he's averaging under 10 points a game and shooting just 45% from the field. A real slump. You're not trading anything at this point of the season in leagues and you're not dropping him. But in dynasty formats, if your trades are still open or if this sort of slump continues for Miles Turner, this is the perfect time to try and buy him. I think we're going to have multiple top 20 seasons for Miles Turner in the next 5 to 6 seasons. And if you can get him while someone might be pissed as they're heading into a playoff run and he falls in a hole and he drops off and he's giving him 8 points and shooting 45 and they go, man, this guy, I thought he was good. Yeah, that sort of mentality plays into it. So yeah, when the season's done, if this continues, try and get him. If you have to give up a top 50 guy, you give it because I think this is a top 20 player for multiple seasons. We thought that potentially with Thad Young, we might have turned the corner, that he was going to start getting his minutes again. Didn't happen. He only played 19 minutes here, had 10 and 3, added 3 steals. The 3 steals is nice. That's where his value was coming from before, but the 19 minutes is obviously somewhat of a worry. If you want steals, he's a fine guy to add, but he's not someone that needs to be owned in every situation. CJ Miles, this is the CJ Miles. 26 minutes for Siege, 7 points, 1 triple, 2 rebounds. This is why you can't rely upon him to be a regular contributor. On to the Bucks. Giannis Antetokounmpo, 21, 8 and 5, 5 steals and a block and a triple. Big numbers from Antetokounmpo. Really impressed with him. Can't say much more. And I don't want to get into a kid bashing situation, but John Henson's back in the rotation, everybody. And I know I had that stat a while ago that every time that Henson played, they lost. They won this game, so I can't be too angry. And he did it right. 8 and 7, 21 minutes, 4 blocks and a steal, but it just always goes back. And you hear the Bulls guys complain today. Give the players some sort of consistency. The best thing I'll say about this game is that with Henson playing 21 minutes, Greggy Munro still played 27. So maybe it's a factor of the Bucks losing when Munro plays 22 rather than when Henson plays. Munro had 18 and 7 with a steal and a block, and we saw more common sense in terms of keeping him on the court and give Henson in there. He's a good rim protector. He's a terrible defender, but he's a good good rim protector. So that can be helpful. But Kid does some weird shit. Malcolm Brogdon was out with a back injury, so Matty Dellavedova started. He played just 24 minutes, so we could get 25 minutes of Rashad Vaughn. 8 points with 3 assists for Daly. He just provides nothing, while Vaughn is terrible. 2 and 4 in his 25 minutes. With Henson getting those minutes, Thon Maker reduced to a spot starter. 5 minutes for Thon. He had 3 points. I like him. It's just not happening for him this season. Well, Chrissy Middleton had 21, 3 and 2. Had a steal, had 3 triples. A good night. Solid night from him. What do you do with Henson? At this point, he's just a streamable guy for blocks. Munro you hold on to. If you want to move on from Brogdon, who's been limited the last couple and now is dealing with a sore back, you have to consider that as being one of those options as well. Let's go on to the next game. It's Golden State and Minnesota. I mentioned this yesterday, that the Timberwolves, for some reason, give the Warriors trouble. I don't know why, but they do. And they did it again. And they got the victory, 103-102. It's just something that's been happening a lot lately with the Wolves and the Warriors. Just, the Warriors lose again. Now, we've already heard that Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Andre Iguodala will all not play on Saturday against the Spurs. So there's going to be shit tons of opportunity for players on this team, which we'll talk about more in the DFS section. But if you're in a seasonal league and you're streaming guys, Pat McCaw, Ian Clark, Shawnee Livingston, Zaza Pachulia, Kevon Looney, Matty Barnes, all these guys, Dave West, they're going to see much bigger roles. Working out how it's all going to play out is going to be tough, but there are no guards on this team. There's Clark, there's McCaw, there's Livingston. That's it. There's no other guards on this team at all. So those 3 guys are getting a lot of minutes. They have to, because there literally are no other guards on this team. That is it. The other guys are all big men. Looney, West, Damian Jones, Matty Barnes is a 3-4, JaVale McGee, Zaza. All the guards and wings are out. So there's going to be big nets for those players. And let's talk about this game. Klay was good, 30 and 6 with 3 triples, 2 assists, and a steal. That's a couple of strong ones in a row from Klay, while Steph had 26, 6 and 7, but did not shoot well. 1 of 8 from 3. 10 of 27 from the field. Just a weird slump going on from Steph Curry. Draymond struggled also, 1 of 8 from the field, 5, 6, and 7 with 2 steals, while Zaza had a really strong night. He hit all 4 of his shots. He had 9, 5, and 3, and he added 3 steals and a block. He's had these sort of games where he's been this borderline top 120 sort of a guy for stretches, and you go, okay, well, do I use Zaza? Most of the time the answer is no, but I still believe he's underrepresented in ownership, especially for like 14-team leagues. He probably should be owned in the majority of those. Ian Clark had one of his random nights, 10 points in 13 minutes. He's going to have another chance for that against the Spurs. Hit 2 triples and had 4 rebounds and 2 assists. Matty Barnes, only the 10 minutes, while Pat McCaw played 25. So it really does appear that McCaw is the big winner there in terms of the Durant injury, but it doesn't mean that big numbers are coming his way. He had 6, 4, and 1, and he's not a 12-team league target. On to the Timberwolves, Ricky Rubio. Remember trading him for Derrick Rose? Remember trading him for nothing just so that Chris Dunn could play? Remember Chris Dunn being picked by the general managers and the players to be the Rookie of the Year? Ricky Rubio played 36 minutes. He had 17, 4, and 13. He had a steal. Yes, he shot the ball poorly, but it doesn't matter. He's good. He's very good. He's been very good for a long time, and he's consistently undervalued by people in and out of the NBA, and it pisses me off to no end. Rubio is putting together a top 30 season over the last month or so. I believe he's inside the top 50 over the course of the season, and he struggled to begin the year, no doubt about that. The elbow issue impacted him, the change of system where Tom Thibodeau, and this is, again, when the Wolves were really struggling, when they just had Rubio come up, can you just hand it off to Zach LaVine and go stand in the corner, which is obviously not a good offensive system. Now, he's running everything, and his fantasy owners must be absolutely wrapped. Karl Anthony Towns was great, 23 and 9, 2 threes, 2 blocks, another big night for him, while Wigo played 37 minutes and had 24 and 4, added 2 steals in there. The random Tom Thibodeau let's limit Gorgie Jeng's minutes situation happened again, 24 minutes, 12 and 4 with a steal and a block for Gorgie. So that's still an okay night, but this is probably 3 out of the last 6 games that Zheng has been limited so that Nemanja Bjelica can play extra. Bjelica played 34 minutes, had 10 and 12. A decent night, but being able to predict when it's going to happen is tough. Because in the last game, Bjelica he went scoreless. And then the reward for that is play 34 minutes. Still own Zheng, still keep Bjelica on the sidelines. Shabazz Muhammad played 28 minutes. He does have a good record against the Warriors. 11 and 8, but in true Shabazz Muhammad form, no threes, no assists, no steals, no blocks. That is what he brings. He would need 30 minutes or so to be a must-own player because he just doesn't bring it in any other category. Speaking of Chris Dunn, he had 2 points in 12 minutes. Brandon Rush had 2 points in his 20 minutes after missing the last game due to illness. Let's talk Houston. Let's talk Chicago. Jim Harden, he twisted his ankle, but he came back and he was fine. 19, 7, and 13, 3 steals and 3 threes. A suboptimal night in terms of efficiency, but still a pretty good performance. While Lou Williams, speaking of suboptimal efficiency, he went 36% from the field, but going 8 of 8 from the line helps, and that gave him 18 points with a pair of threes and a pair of steals. Really a bit of a bounce back after a couple of stinkers from Lou. But he's not going to be Lakers Lou Williams. We should be all aware of that. Eric Gordon played 40 minutes last game, 23 minutes in this one. 8 points, 2 threes, 1 steal, 1 block. If you need to move on from Eric Gordon, consider it fine. And Clint Capella was fantastic as well. The Rockets were down in this game early and ended up blowing out the Bulls because the Bulls are terrible, which I'm going to get onto in a sec. Clint Capella, 17 and 7. Another good night for him. Only 24 minutes. That's my only criticism of Capella. Well, it's not even of him. Just play more minutes. He deserves it. He should. He's very, very good. Pat Bev had 3, 6, and 4. He had a pair of blocks and a steal. Another solid night for him. While Trevor Ariza, he's starting to get it back going. 13 and 11 with a pair of steals and a pair of threes. That was a good month or so of really stinky performances from Trev. But he's getting it back in track and right for this time of the year. If you want steals, if you want threes, Ariza's going to be your man. And he could be around on some waiver wires. Ryan Anderson returned after his back problem in true Ryan Anderson style. 21 points, 6 triples, 3 rebounds, 0 assists, 1 steal, 0 blocks. These are the nights that he has. Don't consider him a must-own player. Don't look at this and go, man, I've got to make sure I keep Ryan Anderson because he hit 6 triples. He's just as likely to have 10 points with 1 3 and no other stats in the next game. This is what he does. He is a borderline, especially 10-team league guy. But he is a borderline 12. I think he's a borderline 12-team league guy as well, honestly, with what he brings or doesn't bring. Let's talk Chicago. Man, this is, Jesus. What the hell is going on with this team? They have no direction in the front office. There's no direction coaching this team. There is absolutely no idea what they're doing the majority of the time. They got absolutely destroyed. There is clear tension between the team and Jim Butler and Dwayne Wade, who are giving basically mirroring statements to the press after the game. You know, talking about how can you expect any of your young guys to develop any consistency if you're going to jerk their minutes around game to game, which is something that I stress on this podcast all the time. If someone doesn't know when they're playing, who they're playing with, what they're supposed to do, if they're scared to make a single mistake, they're not going to be able to grow. That is the problem with Nikola Mirotic over the last couple of years. He misses a shot and he gets jerked around. And now they play every friggin' dickhead under the sun and Mirotic doesn't even get into the game. Like, come on, man. He's gone from the Bulls. The Bulls are my team, and I don't change teams, but this shit that they do is absolutely ludicrous. The decision-making from the up top, from the coaching, none of it makes any sense. Mirotic is going to go somewhere else, and he's going to be good because they use him in the correct way. This is just criminal, the sort of shit that they're doing to all players on this team. Now, Butler had 16, 5, and 4, just another typical post-All-Star swoon from Jim, while Dwayne Wade had 21, 3, and 2 with 2 steals, so they were fine. They were fine. The rest of the team, not so much. Bob Portis started 8 and 6. People are still owning Bobby Portis in 12-team leagues. Get rid of him. There's no point. Cut him. Cut his ass. Cut him 2 weeks ago. Find a DeLorean, go back, and cut him. There's no reason. He's terrible, and they won't use him, and that's fine. Robin Lopez went from 4 straight games of 30-plus minutes to playing under 20. He had 4 and 4 with 2 blocks. I don't believe he is a strong must-own in 10s, and in 12s he probably is, but not necessarily. Joffrey Laverne played 29 minutes last game because Fred Hoiberg loved the minutes he'd given. He'd been so impressive in those 6 minutes prior, so he had to give him 29, and then we played him 16. He had 2 and 9. So, what do we make of it? Jaren Grant starts and plays 4 minutes and then comes off. Ends up with 12 minutes for the game after 2 strong games of 20-plus minutes where he looked good. what is the point of this shit? 0 points, 2 rebounds, 5 assists for Grant. Missed all 5 of his shots. Yeah, that's terrible. He missed 5 of his shots. But, and I know that the stuff that Kobe says or Dion Waiters says, it can be laughed at about, it's better to go 0 of 50 than it is to go, whatever it was, 0 of 4, because that means if you went 0 of 4, it means you've stopped shooting. And I know that's comical at times. But if he misses his first 5 shots and you just say, sorry, mate, you're not playing anymore, like, how does he ever get the confidence to do it? How does he? And again, they go out there with in their mindset as young players who are trying to work out their role and their position in the league. If they get the ball and they go, shit, if I miss this, I'm just not going to play the rest of the game. Like, what kind of a mindset is that? It is the most ridiculous thing. And I've been going on about this since about game 1 last season, which is what they did with Mirotic. And now it's extending to other players. Fred Hoiberg needs to go. Paul Zipser had 8 points in 20 minutes. Michael Carter-Williams returned out of nowhere. 19 minutes for 4, 2, and 3. That was useful, while Cam Payne had 11 points in 16 minutes. Cam Payne has not looked great. I still believe in Cam Payne. I think he can be a very good prospect, and this is the lowest his value is going to be. In a dynasty league, go at him, and you won't have to throw much. I think he can be a top 50 guy within the next 2 seasons. It's a lofty goal. I do think he can get there, but yeah, there probably needs a few changes on this actual team for him to be able to get there, but he is a name to watch. I like Denzel Valentine's fantasy ceiling, 8, 5, and 4 in 23 minutes, but they're just not going to let them go. They're not going to get the minutes. We need Grant, we need Valentine. If you're not going to play Mirotic, that's fine. Then let Portis play all these minutes. I don't think Portis is good, but at least play them the minutes. Let Chris Felicio get out there and show his thing. He did it in this one, 22 minutes for 4 and 7 with 3 blocks. Felicio's really a name to watch for me, especially for, say, 14-team leagues, because I think we might get a scenario where maybe late March we start seeing him play 30 minutes a night and really start to put together some numbers. So he is someone to watch out for. But the Chicago Bulls, man, seriously, the Brooklyn Nets and the Dallas Mavericks is the next game. Speaking of confusing rotations, let's talk about Brooklyn. There was no Brookie Lopez, so Quincy Acey did in fact get the start. 23 minutes for 12 and 4 with 2 threes, while Justin Hamilton played 15 off the bench. Just another one of those instances where no one gets minutes. It's just how they roll. Trevor Booker got a couple of extra, 27. He had 15 and 7, but with Lopez back, he'll go back to a mid to low 20s minutes role, and that puts him at a 12-team consideration. While Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, one of the key young pieces on this team, had 18 minutes for 4 and 5 with a steal and a block, and Karis LeVert had 2, 3, and 2 in 22 minutes. The guy that I have to highlight here, well, there's 2. Jeremy Lin, 27 minutes, 18, 5, and 3, and 2 steals. If he's not owned, get on it and fix it immediately. He has to be owned. He's going to have a strong finish to this year. While Isaiah Whitehead went off, 24 points. He did it Ryan Anderson style, adding just 1 assist, but 24 points is good, and he's been relatively impressive. I don't think that you need to care about it for 12-team leagues, or even probably 14-teamers, but in 16-team leagues, there's some value here for for Whitehead. While Spencer Dinwiddie had 2 points in his 22 minutes. Shawnee Kilpatrick, talked about him yesterday. This is what happens. He plays 28 minutes, he looks good. He plays 28 minutes, he looks good. He plays 23 minutes and has 9 points. The consistency of role and of play for Kilpatrick is just never going to be there, and he is not a 12-team league guy. The Nets are disastrous. Let's talk about the Mavericks. JJ Barea returned for his first game in about 6 weeks. He played 14 minutes and had 9, 1, and 3. The minutes will slowly increase, but he's not going to be a 12-team league guy, I don't believe. Yogi Ferrell looked solid. He has 17 points, added only 2 assists, but hit 3 threes. He's still a borderline 12-team league guy, in my opinion, while Seth Curry had 18, 5, and 4 in 32 minutes. Another efficient scoring night from Seth. The Pencil had 21 and 7, and shout out to the listener, I wish I could remember your name, I'm just coming to it now, who tweeted me a picture of finding a HB pencil in the United States, so shout out to you. I did retweet that today. The Pencil had 21 and 7 in his 37 minutes, while Dirk had 13 points in 23 minutes. Wes Matthews struggled. I don't think that Wes is a must-own player in 12-team leagues, probably not even in 10-team leagues, to be honest. In 10-team leagues, he's definitely not. I don't even know why I went there. In 10 teams, he's not. In 12-team leagues, he's a guy that is borderline, but I wouldn't class him as a must-own guy. And with Nerlens Noel out with a sore knee, we saw Dwight Powell and Salah Mejri pretty much just absorb all his minutes evenly. It wasn't that even. Mejri had 14 and Powell had 20, but not enough for anybody really to care outside of, say, 16-team league formats. Let's go on to the next game. It's Boston and Denver. Avery Bradley, still limited to 30 minutes, had 16, 2, and 2 with 3 steals and 4 triples. A good night, while Isaiah Thomas had 21, 2, and 5 in his 34 minutes. Very efficient for Isaiah, but we've seen a significant drop-off in his play over the last month, maybe 2 weeks, month. Yeah, Al Horford actually got some stuff done offensively. 15 points with 5 boards and 2 assists. A good night for him. While Jay Crowder struggled his way to 8, 2, and 2. Jaylen Brown back on the bench, of course, 14 points in 22 minutes. Really just a deeper league guy. While Marcus Smart only 25 minutes. I think that, yeah, look, I love Smart. I love him as a punt field goal guy. In any non-punt field goal situation, I don't think he's a must-own player in 10s or 12s. And even as a punt field goal guy, if he's going to get 25, 26 minutes a night as they accommodates for more minutes for Jaylen Brown, I'm not sure that Smart remains a must-own player. The Kelly Olynyk, it happened again. 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 22 minutes, 27 minutes, huge night. Can't have that. Can't have that, Kelly. 11 minutes, 0 points. The Celtics are better when Kelly Olynyk plays. It should be as clear as day to anybody who watches the team. I'm not sure what Brad Stevens does if he's not watching the team. Olynyk needs to play more than this. It's painful. I don't need 2 minutes of Tyler Zeller. I don't need 2 minutes of Jordan Mickey. I don't even need 13 minutes of Jonas Jerebko. Your Kelly Olynyk needs to play. And this is why we should never get excited or trust the minutes that have been coming for him, because Stevens just does this on a regular basis. Onto the Nuggets. The Rooster returned from his vertigo. He had 20 and 5 in 34 minutes, while Wilson Chandler kept up his solid run, 23 and 8 in 34 as well. Gaz Harris wasn't ideal, 9 and 3 with 2 steals, still should be owned in most spots, while Wancho moved to the bench and had 5 points in 13 minutes. Farton, Will Barton, if you still own Farton in a 12-team league, I reckon you should be moving on and finding someone else. He had 7 points in 20 minutes, did dish the 4 assists. But with the Blue Arrow, with Jameer Nelson, with Gaz Harris, with the Rooster, with Wilson, there's just not enough minutes for Barton to do his thing. And look, if he gets 30-plus minutes, he's useful. I just don't think he's a good enough on-court player to demand those minutes ahead of those other players. Speaking of the Blue Arrow, he had 13 points in 17 minutes, didn't do a huge amount else, and I think at some point in the next 2 weeks, we're going to see him starting over Jameer Nelson, but not yet. So, I'm getting lots of questions. Do I pick up Jamal Murray? Well, a lot of that depends on your individual situation. If you're in the playoffs now, I'm not sure it's the right move, because 17 minutes, 13 points is good, but 13 points in 17 minutes is probably not a realistic expectation all the time. If you're got a bye, say, next week, and you're in the playoffs, then maybe you take Murray, because by that time, you might see him getting 28 minutes a night and becoming very useful. So it is all very, very interesting to see, but I can see him very similar to the Ivica Zubac's case in Los Angeles, where, at this point, they're not, but by 2 weeks' time, they could be getting 30 minutes, they could be getting 28 minutes and really tearing it up, but depending on where you're sitting at the moment, that might not be the case, and that might not be the best option for your team. So you do have to look at that. The last game of the night was the Washington Wizards and the Sacramento Kings. The Wizards get the victory in overtime in Sacramento. Beal was fantastic. Otto Porter, they gave him a couple of shots. He had 18 points in 39 minutes, 6 boards, 2 steals, and 2 triples, while Johnny Wall had 25, 4 and 12 with 2 steals. So I guess the big three for this team, putting together some pretty good numbers. As I said before, Jason Smith played 21 minutes 2 games ago. DMPCD, 24 minutes here. Predicting what's gonna happen with him is really tough, and the fact that he was back in the rotation impacted what Markieff Morris could do. Now, Morris played 26 minutes and had 10 and 6. It wasn't a great night. If you're in a 10-team league, maybe you want to move on from Markieff. His minutes have been suppressed due to ejections, due to foul trouble, due to Jason Smith random appearances, and all that stuff is impacting him. Jan Mahinmi played 22 minutes, had 9 and 7 with 2 blocks. A really interesting low-volume schedule streamer, but really not a 12-team league ownable player. Probably barely a 14-team leaguer at this point. While Bojan Bogdanovic played 30 minutes and had 17 points, didn't shoot well and didn't do anything else in the other areas. Actually failed to hit a 3 as well, which is a little bit weird for him, but you know what he is. He's a categorical specialist. For the Kings, another change to the starting lineup. I know you're all stunned that happened. Willie Cauley-Stein played 42 minutes and had 20 and 13 with 3 assists and a steal. That's fantastic. But we've seen Cauley-Stein go from big nights to pissy little performances, back to big nights, back to pissy little performances, and then back to big nights. The consistency in his play is not there. The consistency in his minutes is I guess, there. He's not 42 each night, but at least he's getting 30 most nights, and I think he's fine to own without being a must-own guy. We saw Buddy Hield starting instead of Tyreek Evans. So I suppose when you've got 7 shooting guards, you can afford to rotate them every game. Bud played 37 minutes and had 18 and 5 with 4 triples. That is high. It's good. It's also not reliable, so I wouldn't be banking too much on that. While Aaron Aflalo played 13. No, he didn't. He played 34 minutes and had 18 points. And in true Aflalo style, he did nothing else either. He is a 16-team league sort of a player. Darren Collison, 14, 2, and 10 in his 33 minutes, while Ty Lawson went from like 4 consecutive games of 30-plus minutes back to the bench for 20, and then had 20 in this game as well. 8.6 assists and 2 steals for Ty. Not a 12-team league guy. Collison still is, but he's up and down, as this whole team is. Garrett Temple played 30 minutes, had 7 points with 5 assists. Maybe a 16-team league player? Maybe. Or Scalabissiere, probably their best prospect. He had 8 and 5 in 14 minutes. He's just not going to get consistent enough minutes in the interim. He's obviously a name to watch. He's someone I'm really interested in for deeper leagues and for dynasties, but I just don't think he's going to crack the 12-team league threshold this season. As for Bardo, I should have talked about that. He's not someone I'm adding at this point. A points streamer, probably more a 3 streamer, but your consistency with anybody in this Sacramento lineup is pretty much impossible to get at this point due to the way that Jaeger is running things. All right, that's all of the action from Friday done. I'm going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and transition into DFS because we've got a big Saturday coming up. So I'll be back in a sec.
Now I had a dream of you on that cold September night. I had nothing left to look forward to. I thought you were all I wanted, but I never really knew just what you could do. Never want to leave you 'cause I think it's worth to be alone. Times like this I wonder if I'd be better on my own. Constant torture of this love, something I might just disown, 'cause I've got to wonder.
Alright, ladies and gents, we're back. Let's talk perfect DFS lineups. We'll start with FanDuel. Corey Joseph, 36.4, and Johnny Wall at 49.8. Klay Thompson at 40.2, and Braddles Beal at 58. Paulie George, 43.2, and Damari Carroll, 32.9. Marv Williams at 45.1, and Will Cauley-Stein at 40.1. And Jonas Valanciunas rounds it out at 33.9 for a total of, a pretty small total, I guess, 379.6. And that was an incredibly low price of $58,600. On DraftKings, ravishing Rick Rubio at 44, DeMar DeRozan at 50, Paulie George at 46.75, Cauley-Stein at 43.25, Valanciunas at 36.5, Beal had 63.5, Marv had 48, and Damari Carroll had 33.25, and that cost $365.25 for a total of $49,800. There are 12 games on, as I said, and so many lineups are going to be dominated by the Warriors players because all their good players are out, so that's going to be a terrible game to watch. It's going to impact the Spurs guys as well, just because it could be an absolute blowout. We know Kawhi is out. So much weirdness going on in that game, but remember back to Cavs games versus Memphis earlier in the year when LeBron, Kyrie, and Love all sat, and there was all this value opening up, and basically no one hit it. That could be the risk here. But as I highlighted earlier on, which was when I talk about the games in order as usual, I'm just giving you an overview, there's only 3 guards on this entire Warriors team: Ian Clark, Pat McCaw, and Sean Livingston. There's 96 minutes at the guard positions to go around, so they're going to get a lot of minutes. And McCaw's been playing the 3. There's only one other 3 on this team, and that's Matt Barnes. Everyone else is a big man. So we are going to see lots of minutes for those players. So that makes them, I guess, relatively stable in a weird sense. Let's get on to these games. There are 2 weirdly early games. The first one of those is the Utah Jazz and the Oklahoma City Thunder. That's at 3 p.m. Eastern. That game and the Philadelphia Clippers game is not covered on the Australian DFS sites. So, be aware of that, Aussie guys, that those two games won't be included. Let's talk about this Jazz Thunder game. Derek Favors and George Hill both missed the last game for Utah, so they're currently questionable for this one. Hill with the toe and Favors with the knee. If they miss, Derek Favors misses especially, Joe Johnson will move into that role and he'll become a valuable guy. With Georgie Hill out, you maybe look at Joey Ingles, but Exum, Hal Neto, none of those guys really appeal all that much. Let's talk point guards and let's start with Russ Westbrook. He's at $12,700. Very, very hard to go past. A significant price reduction by $600. That's on FanDuel. He's at $12.5 on DraftKings. Really, really tough to go past. If you're playing slates that include this game, you pretty much have to have Russ in, I believe. The point guards on the Jazz side of things, Georgie Hill's at $6,100. I wouldn't hate using Hill if he's ready to go. At that price, a little bit GPP-ish, but I definitely wouldn't be interested in him in cash, and we just don't know the scenario. And as I said, the backups, no interest there. At shooting guard, Rocket Rodney Hood's at $4,500. He has been playing very well with a 26-point average over the last three and dropped 31 in the last game. If George Hill is out, I think it helps Rocket a little bit. At $4,500, he would be a pretty solid play, but we've seen multiple times from Rocket this season that he'll go out there and then get the shits or hurt his knee or have something buckle on him, and that makes him a tough cash play, even though the situation and his form has been remarkably good. On the Thunder side of things, Vic Oladipo's at $5,900. He had 30 in the last game, so they've bumped his salary up by $400 on FanDuel. That takes away a little bit of the shine, but over on DraftKings they haven't, and he's at $5,200. So I really do like him on DraftKings. I think there is tremendous value in Victor Oladipo over on DK. Alec Burks and Alex Abrines, no thanks. At small forward, Joe Johnson at $3,600. I would smash the shit out of Joe Johnson if Derek Favors is not around. He played 32 minutes in the last game. Yeah, he only put up 19 points, but that's still value at $3,600, and I think that he's got an opportunity to go more than that. I really do like that. The only problem that I could foresee is the matchup, and if the Thunder go big and put Cantor and Adams out there together, then maybe they have to go with Boris Diaw. But Johnson would be an interesting one, and I think that Johnson might cause problems for guys. If they do go Cantor Adams, he might cause some problems offensively in terms of them getting out to try and cover him from three, and that might force the Thunder to abandon that matchup. So it could go either way, but I do like Joe Johnson if Favors happens to be ruled out. Andre Robertson is at $3,500 minimum salary. He had 20 points in the last game, but he's clearly not reliable. Really hard to get excited there, while Gordo Hayward's at $7,500. Has been playing well. Average of 38 over his last three, and that's a $400 price dip for Gordo on FanDuel. Still at 78 on DraftKings, so that's a no thanks there. But I like it at 75 on FanDuel. I think there's some value there. Sorry, that's on DraftKings. It is at 75. I like him on DraftKings more than FanDuel. Sorry, got my sites mixed up. I do like him over there on that site. Let's look at Joey Ingles. He gets a marginal bump if Georgie Hill is out. He played 26 minutes in the last game, put up 19 points at $3,900, which is all right, but it's definitely not getting us all that excited. Doug McDirt, no thanks. Let's talk power forwards. Tajay Gibson's at $4,000. He started the last game and put up a robust 10 points in 22 minutes. It just shitted me the way that they used him. I would have loved for them to just say, all right, here's our power forward who's better than our backup power forward. How about we play him significantly more minutes? That's what most coaches would do, but no. Billy Donovan said, let's actually ramp up Domantas Sabonis' minutes, who struggled all season, and now we've got a capable power forward in. We probably should play our shit one more. I know there's more that goes into those decisions, but that's the way that it looks when you look at it on the surface, and that's the narrative I'm going to stick to. But as for Taj, at $4,000, I like his GPP upside here. If he's going to continue to start, he should be able to exceed 20 points majority of the nights. It obviously hasn't happened much for him hasn't happened much in Oklahoma City, but 4,000, 3,800 on DraftKings. The value for Taj is really screaming at you. Derek Favors at 5,000, I'm not really keen there, especially considering we don't know how that knee's going. While Enes Kanter at 5,600. Kanter has a decent record against Utah, against his former team. 5,600 is probably just taking a little bit of value away from him, though. 53 on DraftKings, the same. Not really feeling that as being a great situation. At center, Rudy Gobert is at 7,800. He's been putting up nice numbers, but Adams has been an impact player against Gobert so far. So I don't think I want to spend 78, and I sure as shit don't want to spend 53 on Steve Adams. He's been in bad form, and now he gets a shit matchup. So that's a no on Adams, and it's a maybe on Gobert, but probably not. Just that the Adams defense can be something of a concern. All right, let's move on now to the next game. We're going to talk Philadelphia and the Clippers, another one of these early games. This is a 3:30 p.m. start. The Clippers are favored by 12.5, and the total is 216.5. Gerald Henderson, who played a lot of minutes in the last game, he's now questionable with a hip injury. If he is out, Justin Anderson should be the guy that gets those minutes, and he becomes an interesting option there at 3,600. He's had a 1-point game in his last 5. He's had a 30-point game. Obviously, there's up and downness associated with his game, but if Gerald is out, then I like Anderson more as a GPP guy, but at almost minimum salary, he obviously gained some appeal with those extra minutes that should be able to head his way. Let's talk point guards. TJ McConnell has been disappointing lately. He is at 5,300. The numbers for him recently, he's barely getting over 20. In fact, he isn't in the last 3 games, just a 19-point average. And now this is a terrible matchup. That's a stay away, while Chrissy Paul's at 8,700. Paul's numbers recently haven't quite been there, with just a 31-point average over his last 5. Now, it's a pretty good bump when you play the Sixers, but is the bump going to be enough to bring Paul back to that sort of a level of value? I don't feel strongly about him being a must-play. At 84 on DraftKings, it's a little bit more enticing, but not really. Austin Rivers had a good game in the last game, but it was a blowout, and that enabled him to get more playing time. At shooting guard, JJ Redick, it's no. Source Castillo's at minimum salary, and he should be, because he had 3 points in the last game. I actually cashed in a cash game with Stauskas in my lineup on Thursday, and he put up 3 points, and I just missed out cashing in the GPP. 3 points, and he started. I'm not bitter about it. Yeah. When he starts, he does tend to suck, and I didn't really even take my own advice there. I wouldn't be looking at Nick in any of these sort of lineups. Jamal Crawford's getting some good play, and he's at 3,900. He's averaging 21 over the last 3. He had 23 in that last game. You don't want to trust Crawford as a cash option, but he obviously has some GPP upside of being able to put those numbers up. At small forward, it's all Bob Cove. He is at 7,200. He had a 47-pointer in that game against the Blazers. I don't think he's going to be able to put up that sort of a level of production against the Clippers. Luke Marmute is a pretty good defender. Yeah, 7,200 is pretty outrageously high for Covington, and I reckon with 12 games on, there's going to be better options out there that you can go and find. We're not going to be looking at the Clippers small forwards, obviously. Justin Anderson's a guy that I touched on earlier. If Gerald is out, yes. At power forward, Richaun Holmes is at 4,400. I don't really like it. It is a good matchup for him, but your minutes could be the concern. Obviously, just a GPP sort of a play. Well, Blakey Griffin is at a pretty significant salary, 9,100. His numbers have definitely dipped somewhat. I don't feel comfortable with Blake just at this point at that sort of a salary. He's at 86 on DraftKings, so it's marginally more appealing, but still not quite there. More a GPP play. At center, DeAndre Jordan, 7,400. I think this is a great spot to use DJ. I think you definitely can look at him as a GPP guy, but also as a cash play. He's done very well against Philadelphia. Centers in general we saw what Yusuf Nurkic could do when he was matched up against Jahlil Okafor. Yeah, we've seen centers put up big numbers, so I really do like DeAndre here. As for Okafor, he's at 5,100. His numbers have been piss poor at best. Would you look at him as a GPP guy? Well, you could look at Okafor's last game and say, he put up a nice night. It translated to 26 DFS points in 29 minutes, and at 5,100, that's sort of where he needs to be. And it was one of his best games since the Embiid shutdown and Noel trade. I don't feel great about Jahlil Okafor, as you've probably guessed, but he has looked better the last couple of games, and I do give people credit where credit is due. All right, let's move on now to the next game. The New York Knicks and the Detroit Pistons. The Pistons are favored by 6. The total is 211 points here. This is another weirdly timed game. It's a 5 p.m. Eastern tip. Again, check your contests to see whether this game is actually included. Is it? Yeah, it is. Sorry, I was just trying to double check my time. Yes, it's a 5 o'clock Eastern tip, so it might not be in contest. It's more likely to be in early slate games with the Utah Thunder and with the Philadelphia Clippers games. Let's talk about the point guards. Derrick Rose is at 6,500. A good game from Rose, but Rose needs to do so much to break his value. He had a big game in the last one, 34 points. And at 6,500, that's just barely getting there. He is not a strong option. I don't think his GPP upside is high enough, and I don't think his cash reliability is there at that salary, so that's a no from me. Reggie Jackson at 5,200. Big game from Reg in the last one, 30 points, actually averaging 27.5 over the last three. But yeah, his numbers are so up and down, so wildly variable that it's hard to put much trust in him. I don't mind the GPP because when he plays and plays well, then he gives you 6 or 7x. We've seen that multiple times from Reggie Jackson recently, that he can do that. But then when he plays like 20 minutes, then it's not working out. So there's no real cash value there. Ish Smith's at 4,500. I don't love that, but he has had some success against the Knicks previously. And I don't think that he's a terrible GPP in the same way that Jackson is. If Jackson doesn't play, then it's going to be Smith that puts up those minutes. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope feels like he is ready for a big one. He's at 4,700. You should never trust him. You should never trust him to put up a consistent performance. We've seen that multiple times that he just can't do it. But when he goes big, he goes big. And he's at 4,700, and it's a real chance for him to go big here against the Knicks. So consider him one of your GPP guys. At 5,900 on DraftKings, I would say screw that. Screw that with something unpleasant. I can't even think of something unpleasant. That's how disgusted I am by that price. 47 for him on FanDuel is very nice, though. At the other shooting guards, Courtney Lee's at 5,100. Has been playing well, but 5,100, sorry, Courtney, you're just not a prolific enough scorer for me to think that's going to be a viable option. Well, Justin Holiday's a minimum player for a reason. At small forward, Melo at 7,600. I like this for Melo. I can't see Marcus Morris being too much of a bother for him. He's been putting up decent nights, but not necessarily $7,600 nights. But I think this is a good spot for Melo. At 73 on DraftKings, I probably like it a little bit more. I think he can be played. If you're looking for someone in cash and you don't want to spend up for, say, a LeBron, yeah, Melo could be that guy that comes in and gives you 37, 38, and in return some pretty solid value at that salary. As for Marcus Morris at 5,900, he is just a GPP guy, and I don't really feel all that strongly about him. Stan Johnson's been improving. At 3,700, he just is not doing enough, though, to justify that, even as a GPP situation. At power forward, yes, Kristaps is at 6,400. The numbers haven't been great recently. 33 average is all right. It's not quite where it needs to be, but it's fine at 6,400. I don't think that I would necessarily run with him in most spots. He's at 67 on DraftKings, and that's not really all that enticing to me over there. It just feels a little bit too highly priced. The tackle box, John Lewis at 4,300. He had 1 point in the last game. That was awesome in 13 minutes. Will he remain in that pissy little roll off the bench? I think he should, but whether he will or not remains to be seen. So he's obviously not a strong play. Well, Toby Harris at 5,600. Toby's playing well. 31-point average over his last 5. Played 41 minutes in that last game. Obviously a really nice performance from him over there. And at 5,600, I think it's a solid play. I don't think the Knicks defense is anything to be too concerned about. I do like Toby. And honestly, he could easily drop a 40 here. I think this is a good spot to use him, cash and even GPPs. At center, Andre Drummond's at $8,000. Do we get good Andre Drummond? Do we get lazy ass Andre Drummond? Which one do we get? The question won't be answered until after the game, and that's why in GPPs in cash games you can't trust him. At $8,000, he could give you 50. He could give you 20 as well. Great GPP option, solid matchup, shit reliability. Billy Hernan Gomez is at 5,800. Sorry, mate, that's too high. I like Billy. I don't feel comfortable with 5,800. It feels too high. 53 on DraftKings, maybe you're talking. He had 34 points in the last game at 28 minutes. In terms of reliability for the Knicks centers, there's none. You can't rely upon what they're going to do game to game. So I wouldn't like that in cash, but I would definitely consider it as a GPP on DraftKings, not so much on FanDuel. Aaron Baines and Kylo Quinn, I don't think there's a lot to see from those guys. All right, let's roll on now. We've got the next game coming up. It is the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Orlando Magic. The Magic fresh off a 40-point belting by the Charlotte Hornets. This should be a good game. No spread currently out at the moment. Who knows? Who knows? This could be a disaster for DFS purposes. Kyle Korver is listed as doubtful currently, And for the Magic, Nikola Vucevic is questionable with his Achilles. This is a 7 p.m. start, so the beginning of the normal slate of games. Let's talk about point guards. Lord Alfred Payton is now a $7,000 player. That's high. He only had 29 against the Bulls, but he only played 27 minutes. I think that he does have a chance to exceed that against Kyrie and the Cavs, but at $7,000, it's definitely not a great play. It's definitely not in your best interest, and it's $7,000 on DraftKings as well. I don't feel totally strong about it. But the guy is averaging 46 points over his last 3, including just 29 today, and 41 over his last 5. So the upside is there. He's a GPP player. The matchup is a positive. Really not a cash guy, though, because, again, it's hard to think, all right, I'm just going to lock Alfred in at 36. I don't feel that confidence at this point. Kyrie is at 9,300. He gets a really good matchup as well. That price just feels somewhat high, though. I don't think we're going to need Kyrie to go out there and drop 60 to beat the Magic. And yeah, I don't feel great. If you're going to use Kyrie, please don't do it in cash. I can't see that being a really solid option. At shooting guard, Evan Fournier is at 5,600. A little bit of a down night for him, just the 19 points in 25 minutes. But at 5,600 in a matchup that's positive, I still think there's value there. 57 on DraftKings. He can definitely be considered in both formats of the game. Iman Shumpert, J.R. Smith, Mario Hezonja, I wouldn't want to use any of those players. At small forward, Terry Ross, he's burnt a lot of people recently. At 4,500, that makes him a good GPP play. Positive matchup, low ownership, ability to go off and drop 35 or 40 at a $4,500 price tag. That makes him a GPP guy. Terrible cash option, but a really nice GPP. He's at 52 on DraftKings, so a bit higher, obviously. But you still, if he goes off, he's still gonna beat that GPP sort of value if he goes off. So that doesn't rule him out from being a GPP type player just because his salary is $700 higher over on that site. LeBron, 11,600 for LeBron. He's averaging 62 points over the last 3 games. So FanDuel's bumped him by $400. If you're wanting to spend up money, you should feel pretty confident that you're getting at least 50 from LeBron, probably at least 55, and 11,600, that's not too bad. But the risk here is the blowout. The Magic got thumped. Maybe LeBron takes it easy. Haven't really seen that happen all season. But at 11,600, you definitely don't want your $11,600 player scoring just 40 points. And weirdly, his last 3 times against the Magic, 42.5 point average. Very, very low. Only a GPP option, I think, for LeBron. I don't feel strong about him being a cash play. He's 11,000 on DraftKings, so the same stuff holds true there. Dick Jefferson started the last couple of games, but he doesn't do much in those starting minutes. I'm not interested really in him too much. Well, Jeff Green, of course not. Let's talk power forwards. I like Aaron Gordon at 5,600. Yeah, I don't know how high his upside actually is, but in terms of cash, I feel pretty good about him putting up 25 majority of nights. He's averaging 28 over the last 5, 25 over the last 3, including today where he only played 28 minutes. So I feel pretty good about him getting to at least 25 or 26 on most nights. He's a $5,900 player on DraftKings, so that's a little bit higher. Obviously, again, my maths is without reproach. I'm not sure about him at 59. I definitely wouldn't consider him a cash option. More a GPP, but I'm not even sure his ceiling's high enough. So he's probably a little bit of a write-off over on DraftKings, to be honest. Channing Frye had a big game in the last one. Do you buy into revenge games? If you do, this is one of his former teams, so maybe you could consider that. He's at 4,400. Obviously, his role varies from game to game, so this could be a situation where he comes out and hits a few threes, but I don't think his upside's high enough at 4,400 to consider using him. At 37 on DraftKings, yeah, sure, that's a GPP situation waiting to happen, because there is significant upside at that sort of a salary. For the centers, Nikola Vucevic is at 7,400. Wouldn't use him even if he was healthy. Or Tristan Thompson's at 5,600. So the salary's coming down for Tomo. Not sure it's coming down far enough, but it's getting closer. As for Bismack Biyombo, he's at 4,900 and he hasn't been good. He's at 54 on DraftKings. So even if Vooch is out, I wouldn't be rushing to lock him into a lineup. All right, let's move on now. We've got the next game coming up. It is the New Orleans Pelicans and the Charlotte Hornets. The Battle of the Hornets. The Hornets are favored by 2.5. The Charlotte ones, that is, 2.5 point favorite, 202.5 point over under. John O'Brien is questionable with that sprained ankle. Not that that makes too much of a difference. We know that Frank the Tank is out as well. And Anthony Davis is playing after all the hand-wringing about him being made of glass. He's playing. He is fine to go. He just has these weird things and then they heal up. I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. Drew Holiday is at 7,500. He has been pretty poor. Or poor enough at that salary. 28-point average over his last three at 7,500. It's a good matchup against the Hornets. Really good matchup. Does it work? Well, I don't want to trust it at all. But in a GPP, he could easily have a 50. I don't feel great about it though. In this situation, Kemba Walker at 8,400. I feel pretty good about Kemba there. He has been putting up really impressive numbers of late. The Pelicans, Drew Holiday's a good defender, but point guards still can get stuff done against him and against the Pelicans in general. So I think Kemba's worth a look at. He's at 81 on DraftKings as well. So I think there's definitely some value in Kemba Walker. Brian Roberts had a good game today, but don't bank on that happening. Jezza Lamb's at 3,800. The minutes are on the way up. He had 25 points again today. I like him as a GPP play. I think there is definite value as he continues to get 20, 22, 23 minutes. And when he consistently gets these minutes in a row, it means that Steve Clifford is starting to trust him. And that's the biggest thing that's held him back in the past. So if Clifford's trusting him, then you should start to get some level of trust, at least while he remains a sub $4,000 player. And especially on DraftKings, where he's at 3,300. That's ridiculously cheap, and I do really like that over there. Not saying it's a must-play guy or a core cash or anything like that, but I wouldn't actually think that it's a terrible cash option at 3,300, because you know what? Even if he doesn't give you 25 points, if he just gives you 15 points, then it hasn't blown up your lineup. And you've got those other big-name guys in there. So I don't hate Jeremy Lamb as cash or GPP, especially on DraftKings. Each one more, not a lot for me to love there. Nicola Batum's at 7,200, another solid game for him. He just feels like he's 32 to 34 points most nights, but at 7,200, unfortunately, it just is a little bit under, so I'm not really all that keen on taking a gamble on Batum. At 7,000 on DraftKings, it's a little bit better, but it's still not my number one play at that position. Geordie Crawford, $3,900. He's only played 2 games, but he's played over 20 minutes in both of them. He's got a 23-point average across those 2 games. He's at 3,900. Why not? Absolutely consider him a GPP guy. 37 on DraftKings as well. I think you have to look at him as a guy that's going to play 20 plus minutes, and he's going to get his shots off. And if they go in, then you could be looking at a 30-point sort of performance, and that would work pretty nicely in your favor. He's had a 30-point performance already. His other game was 19. Yeah, they're pretty decent numbers for a guy that's priced 39 and 3,700. So Geordie Crawford, someone to pay attention to. Hollis Thompson isn't at small forward. Marco Bellinelli, no thank you. Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, been really disappointing, and that salary is too high, so let's forget about him. And Solomon Hill, yeah, probably shouldn't have even brought up that name. Marvin Williams is at 5,900, a whopper today. 45 points for Marv, averaging 32 over the last 5. The problem I see here with Marvin Williams is he's going to be matching up against DeMarcus Cousins or Anthony Davis. And not sure how he's going to go against those two, especially trying to get rebounds, which has been a real strong point for him recently. It just doesn't strike me as a superb situation for Marv. Not terrible. Everything's moving in his favor, but this matchup doesn't feel like it's altogether that strong, and I reckon I can probably find better players out there than him at that price tag. As for Tone Davis, he is at 10,900 on FanDuel. Regardless of injury, I think that's high. 9,900 on DraftKings, I think it's good. I like the upside there at 9,900. We know that Davis can have 55s, that can have 60s pretty comfortably. He has routinely destroyed the Hornets as well. The Cousins factor is marginally limiting, but that price makes him a very, very good option. At center, Cody Zeller is at 5,100. I like Zeller here. I don't feel totally strongly about it, but I do think that you could use him in cash and you can use him in GPPs. While Boogie at 10,500, they've jumped his salary by $1,000 dues. He's got a great record against the Hornets also, but I would look at him more as a GPP guy. At 10,100 on DraftKings, I actually think that you could use him in cash over there. Wouldn't feel totally strongly about it, but I think it's a pretty good price for a boogie that could go for 50 or so, especially with such a good record that he's got against Charlotte. But obviously that record comes when he wasn't playing with Anthony Davis, which is an issue to a degree. It hasn't been a major issue, but it has happened occasionally. Minnesota, that is the next game. They are taking on the Milwaukee Bucks. Both teams coming off big victories today. The Bucks are favored by 2.5, and the total here is 201. Mirza Teletovic is questionable with a hamstring. He missed today's action, as did Brogo with a back problem. So we've got to check the status of those guys. If Brogdon is out, I'd expect more Jason Terry, more Dellavedova, more Rashad Vaughn, and neither of those are going to be impactful. If Teletovic is out, then maybe some more Johnny Henson at the 4. One thing's for sure, we're just never going to see Terrence Jones, it appears like, for the Bucks. They signed him just so he... I don't know. I don't know why they signed him. I don't know why they signed him, because he's not good, but I also don't know why they signed him to not play him, ever. Even when you've got no Michael Beasley or Mirza Teletovic, you decide not to play the other power forward on your roster. Jason Kidd, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk point guards here. Ravishing Rick Rubio, 7,100. This guy is crushing. He is averaging 42 points over the last 3, 39 over his last 5. In fact, his lowest score in his last 5 has been 34 points. That is super. Now, the Bucks are a negative team for point guards to match up against. That's a concern. Is it a total concern to steer me fully away from Rick? No, but I also don't think that I would lock him as a core player or consider him a real strong cash game play. But Rubio at that price, and 6,800 on DraftKings, should absolutely be in your pool of players. As for Brogo, if he plays at 4,800, I don't really feel that great about that, neither with Daly or Tyus or Jason Terry. Use Chris Dunn if you want to lose some money. At shooting guard, Yanni's at 11,300. Some pretty impressive performances from Antetokounmpo recently, but 11,300, maybe pushing it a bit. Definitely don't want that for cash. I like his GPP upside. He could easily drop a 60 and repay that, but I don't feel great about him as a cash play at all. At 10-1 on DraftKings, I feel much better about him being a cash option there, especially if you're looking to spend up at those positions. You know, he becomes one of those options and is a much better cash play on DraftKings than he is on FanDuel. Lancey Stevenson was completely out of the rotation for the Wolves today. Whether he comes back into it or not remains to be seen, but not a good play to use anyway. Chrissy Middleton's at 6,800. I don't have any worries about him in the back-to-back. He played the last back-to-back here. I think that we're fine with that. Amazing that he's able to come back, play his full minutes, and not have any back-to-back restrictions yet. Tyreek Evans and Chandler Parsons are still sitting out back-to-backs and still having minutes limits. How far are we? 8 months after surgery? 9 months after surgery? And they've been playing for 4 months? Weird, the medical approaches of I know they're different things. Hamstrings and knees are different, but it's just weird to me that we're still seeing Tyreek sit on back-to-backs and Chandler Parsons just started playing them. As for Middleton at 6,800, that's too high. That's too high. He's at 66 on DraftKings as well. Love him. Too high. Wigo at 7,700, averaging just the 29 points over his last 5, and that obviously is nowhere near cutting it at 7,700, but it is a positive matchup for him against the Bucks, so I would absolutely throw him into a GPP. I wouldn't do it with much confidence, but I would do it. Tone Snell at 41, probably not, and Shabazz Muhammad at 37. Shabazz plays like he did today, played big minutes, under 20 points. He just doesn't have much upside because he just doesn't contribute in any other areas, really. Let's move on to the power forwards. Gorgie Jennings at 5,600. I like him as a low-owned GPP play. We don't know, will he be 34-minute Gorgie? Will he be 24-minute Gorgie? That's why we can't trust him in cash. But Thibodeau has this thing where he just won't stick to this consistency, especially for Jeng, and that's bothersome. Nemanja Bjelica had 27 today. He's a $4,000 guy. You could hedge against Jeng and go GPPs with Bjelica, hoping he gets the majority of the minutes, but I wouldn't. The odds favour it going towards Jeng. Now, as for Johnny Henson at 4,100, Henson, big game today, 25-pointer, huge. Obviously, there is no way of being able to predict what Kidd will do on a night-to-night basis and how he will use Henson. But as a GPP guy, sure, at 4,100, you would have to consider it. And on DraftKings at 3,200, you absolutely have to consider that. He should be in your GPP pool at that price, because if he plays 20-plus minutes, then he could easily get you 20 points. And obviously at 3,200, That's a pretty nice whack of value. At centre, Greg Munro, 6,300. No, thank you. There's just no way I can feel good about that with Jason Kidd. While Carl Anthony Towns is at 10,600. He's at 10.4 on DraftKings. I like Townsy. The numbers they've been great. They haven't been great DFS-wise. I wouldn't consider him a core player or a lock player, but he's one of the better centres that's on the board in that high price bracket if you're wanting to go that direction. And you should feel a pretty high degree of confidence in his floor. Yeah, his lowest score in his last 5 has been 38. So that's a pretty bloody good floor and enables you to have some confidence if you are spending up at that position that he's going to give you numbers and a certain level of production pretty much no matter what. All right, move on to the next game now. We're going to talk Toronto. They are taking on the Miami Heat. The Heat are favoured by 5.5, and the total is 203. Nothing for us to really see here with this game in terms of injuries. Let's talk point guards. Goran Dragic is at 7,200. Some really good performances from Dragic recently. I think it's an okay spot to use him in cash and GPPs, while Tyler Johnson at 5,300. More just a GPP guy. Been a little bit down, or was down in that last game, his first game back after that shoulder problem. So I think he's more of a GPP option, but that's sort of where it sits with Tyler. On the Raptors side of things, Corey Joseph coming off a big game today where he is at $5,000, actually averaging 27 points over his last 5. I think that he is fine. I don't think he's got much GPP upside, but I do think that in cash, I wouldn't feel like it's a terrible situation for Joseph. I think that he's worth a look. Shooting guards, Joshy Richardson, no thank you. Norm Powell, no thanks. Two of my favourite second rounders from last year. DeMar DeRozan, 9,700. Yes, he had 48 points there. Yes, he averages 51 in the last 3 games against the Heat. 9,700 though, I'm not interested in that at that price. On DraftKings, he is at 8,400. I am very interested at 8,400. I would look at that as GPP. Shit, I would even consider that a cash option at that sort of a price. It is very, very cheap, and you know that the shots are going to go his way. So I like it there. Dion Waiters, 6,800. Big game from Dion in the last one, 35 points. I do not want to trust Dion Waiters at that sort of a salary. I just cannot get behind that price tag for him again. At small forward, Damari Carroll, nah. PJ Tucker, nah. And the Heat small forwards are useless. At power forward, Jimmy Johnson, 6,200. Jim's been playing really well. He's got a 31-point average over his last 3. The matchup here is decent. I would only look at him as a GPP play. I don't feel strongly about him in cash, but there's some value there. While Serge Ibaka, it's too high, $6,800. I'm not interested in Serge at that. At 61 on DraftKings, it's probably looking a little bit nicer, but the matchup is a -1 for him against the Heat, so there are better ways to go about it. Jonas Valanciunas at 5,400 had 34 points today. He's actually averaging 33 over the last 3, and it's a matchup where maybe he gets back to 30 minutes, maybe. No guarantee with that, but I like it at 54, sorry. At 48 on DraftKings, I love it. I'm still not sure I want to go with him in cash, but I think he's a great GPP play at that salary. And if we hear word from Dwayne Casey that they ask him about, hey, why is JV playing the 30-plus minutes, and he says that this is a positive matchup for him, then maybe you get on it in cash at 4,800, because if he plays 30 minutes, the numbers are coming. If he gets 30 minutes, he's getting 30 points. And at 4,800, that clearly exceeds where you need to be at. So that's a way that you should be approaching that, I believe. Let's talk about this next game. We've got the Golden State Warriors and the San Antonio Spurs. Jesus, this is not fun at all. We have got no Steph, no Clay, no Iggy, no Draymond, no Durant, no Kawhi, maybe no Tone Parker. Does Pop go full rest and take no LaMarcus? I don't think so. I think that all these guys play. Tone might not play. Manu will be back after resting last game. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough getting the appropriate value out of this game because there's shitloads of it there, but trusting it is the tough one. Let's start with the point guard. Sean Livingston is a minimum salary player. There are 3 guards on the Warriors: Livingston, Clark, McCaw. So that's 96 minutes to go between those 3 at least. Plus, McCaw is the only small forward on this team outside of Matt Barnes. So there's at least 10 minutes there for him. Opening up more minutes for Livingston and Clark at the 1-2. So these guys, I would be stunned if Clark, Livingston and McCaw didn't play 30 minutes each. And I would be stunned if two of them didn't play 36 plus. So there's a lot of value there. Livingston at 3,500, you have to like it. And at 3,500, he might only get you 25 points, but it's a clear win at that sort of a salary. So there's value there. Now, everyone's going to be on these Warriors guys, but you're not going to have all of them in. So it's going to be about trying to find the right one, and that's not an easy thing to do. I think that, just as an overall, I think Ian Clark is probably the most likely to put up fantasy numbers. So he would be the guy I would feel more secure with using, but obviously Livingston and McCaw do come into play as well. On the Spurs side of things, Parker's at 4,100. There's a chance that he doesn't play, so I'm not interested in using him. His replacements will be Pat Mills and DeJounte Murray. Mills struggled in a big way, just 8 points in the last game, while Murray looks good. Murray would be a GPP option to me. Mills is a guy that a lot of people will use as a GPP, but I think Murray is the way to go to differentiate yourself somewhat, and he could have a big game, but Mills could also be solid. I'll look at Mills more as perhaps a cash game, and that last game was potentially a little bit of an outlier. But I think that Murray, if that outlier actually happens again, then Murray is going to be the guy to look at. The shooting guards, here's where there's a lot of interest happening. Ian Clark is a minimum salary player, and Pat McCaw is at 3,500. Again, I prefer Clark over McCaw, but you could totally consider either of these players. McCaw's the better player. It doesn't necessarily mean he's the better contributor of DFS points at this point, because Clark is a scorer and he can go out there and someone's going to have to score on this team. We're missing all the scorers. So someone's going to have to do it, and Clark is probably going to be your best option to do that. So that's why I think that he's going to have pretty high usage, shoot a lot, and get a lot of... and if he gets hot, man, he can legitimately shoot at 80% on a hot night. Now, some guys get hot and they hit him at 60. Like, this guy goes and has like 10 of 10. So I really do think that Ian Clark is a solid option. He's a $3,000 player on DraftKings. That should be smashed, I reckon, in even your cash lineups. GPPs, everyone's going to be on him, but I think it's good. And of course, McCaw at 3,300 as well. You could potentially go lineups of, say, Livingston, Clark, McCaw, and then load up with Russ, LeBron, Yanni, some of these other high-priced guys, because all those guys are so cheap. 3,300 for McCaw, 32 for Livingston, 3,000 for Clark. That's with DraftKings pricing. Super, super low pricing. And because this resting came out late, the sites haven't updated their prices to match that. Dan Green at 3,900. Not really. Look, there is no Kawhi, but when Kawhi doesn't play, it doesn't really impact what Green does. It doesn't change his usage. It doesn't change what he does. Not interested in him. Manu is the interesting one. If Tone Parker's out at 3,800, I'd be all over Manu. I think that he's got some really good GPP upside if we're assuming that he plays. Matty Barnes at 4,200, just another guy that's going to have to play because there are no wings on this team. He's at 4,200. He's been pitiful since joining this team. There's no two ways about it, but he's going to have to luck himself into minutes. He's at 33 on DraftKings as well, which is super, super price, really good price. And you'd have to think that Barnes is going to play 30 minutes as well. There are four players to play three positions. Clark, Livingston, McCaw, and Barnes. There's four of them that play three positions. So you look at the minutes. I'm trying to work out minutes in my head here. 144 minutes between four players. That's 30 plus for all of them. And some of them might push 40. So Barnes is in your GPP player pool. Now, would having all four of those guys in the lineup be the best idea? Probably not. I would think 2 is going to be your limit. Going for 3, I think it's unlikely that 3 of them all really smash through value. Going for 2 is probably going to be your best way to go. John Simmons, who will start without Kawhi, you would guess. He's at 3,600. Didn't do a lot in the last start. Had 14 points. But at 3,600, you can take a punt on John Simmons as well. There is so much value in this game. So much. Kyle Anderson's another one to look at. He is at 3,700. He had 26 points the last game that Kawhi was out. But Anderson himself is dealing with an injury. So if he happens to play at 3,700, he is the guy that, with all these other cheap options, Clark, Barnes, McCaw, Livingston, Simmons, Anderson is the guy that might throw it the other way. If you put him in, he gets 40 points, 35 points, and no one else has him. That can work in your favor as well. So don't, if we hear Kyle is playing, don't write him off. Power forwards. Dave West at 3,500. I think you have to like him there. Now, there are a lot of big man options for the Warriors. That's what they've got in excess of. There's West. There's Looney, who's started in place of Draymond a lot this season. There's Zaza. There's JaVale. There's Damian Jones. But I think that you feel pretty good about West getting mid-20s in minutes at least. And at 3,500, can easily repay that value. Minimum on DraftKings as well. Another option that you can use. But less certain in terms of minutes than some of those other players, just because of the other guys around. 6,900 for LaMarcus Aldridge. I'm just not sure he's going to play enough minutes because this game could be a blowout. And he struggled mightily against Draymond. So if you want to go past and look at past performances, don't, because Draymond's not there. 6,900 for Aldridge has not been anywhere near that, and I'm just not feeling him as a great option here. Now, Kevon Looney could easily start in place of Draymond, as he's done so far this season. At 3,500, that's an option. I don't feel great about Looney. He's barely in the rotation as is, so I don't think that with other big man options there, he's necessarily going to play enough. Oh, another big man I forgot, James Michael McAdoo is around as well, so there's other players that can take these minutes off the Warriors. Now, Zaza Pachulia had a 27-point game today, and he played 26 minutes. In this situation where Draymond can't switch to center, maybe Zaza gets 27, 28 minutes again, and at 4,300, he is in play. He is a $3,500 player on DraftKings. I really like him as even a cash play. I'd consider him on DraftKings at 3,500. That's super low for a guy that should start to play more minutes without Green there to switch into that role. Pau Gasol at 5,800 could be a laugher. I don't trust Pau Gasol at 5,800. Probably going to leave that alone. And Dedman and McGee, I just don't feel the greatest sense of love for those players. But that is going to be it's going to make or break lineups the way that you decide to play that. Don't go hard on it. Don't play 4 or 5 Warriors. I don't think that's the way to success. Focus more on the guards and wings rather than the big men, because there are more of those around and those minutes need to go somewhere. I like Clark a lot. I like Livingston. Barnesy and McCaw are a step behind those guys. And if you're going to go big, Zaza and Dave West are probably the guys that I look at there more. Phoenix and Dallas. We've got the Mavericks favored by 7, and the total is 215. Nerlens Noel. We don't know if Nerlens is going to play. He's questionable with that knee that saw him miss today. If he misses, the minutes just go to Salah Mejri and Dwight Powell, but not in large enough quantities for us to give two shits about. At point guard for Dallas, Yogi Ferrell's at 5,200. Another good game from Yogi, but another game of not meeting value. He just is priced too highly, consistently too highly, so I'm not interested in using him. Now, this is a back-to-back. I thought there was a chance that JJ Barea might not play, but he is playing. So there's a chance that maybe he plays maybe a minute or two extra, and they take that off of Yogi, so that is a concern. But I wouldn't want to use Yogi at that $5,200 price tag anyway, just too expensive. For the Suns, Eric Bledsoe and Tyler Ulis. Bledsoe's down to 8,400 on FanDuel. That's a $500 price drop, so that is making it very appealing. 8,400 though is still high, and especially in a negative matchup against the Mavs, I can find better options than Bledsoe. As for Ulis at 4,300. Just not interested in him at the moment. A lot of things need to go right for him to play enough minutes for me to care, and they're just not going right at the moment. Let's talk about shooting guards. Seth Curry is at 6,200. The numbers have been fine from Seth, but they're just not quite reaching $6,200 worth of value. It's a positive matchup, super positive matchup against Phoenix. I like him as a GPP guy, but I don't feel great confidence in cash. The same I'll say for Devin Booker, who's at 6,200 and is averaging 29 over the last 5, but we know that doesn't cut it at 6,200. Let's talk JJ Barea at 4,700 on FanDuel. That's an absolute write-off. At 33 on DraftKings, great matchup, under-owned. Maybe you want to throw him a look in a GPP. It'd be pretty risky, but he'll have less than 1% ownership, I would guess. Small forward, the pencil, Harrison Barnes, $6,000. Pretty good record against Phoenix. If there's one game where he's going to beat value, it's probably going to be this one. I don't feel strongly about it, though. He's at 64 on DraftKings. I feel strongly about that. I don't want that. TJ Warren's at 6,000. The salary's rising. The production's fine. I'm okay with TJ at 6,000. I think that he can beat that value there. and he's at 6,000 on DraftKings. Probably less interested on DraftKings just because of the difference in salary. I mean the difference in salary cap. They're at the same salary, but you've obviously got $10,000 less to play with, so I'm just not quite feeling him as much over on DraftKings. Let's talk power forwards. Dirk is at 6,200. Dirk's numbers have been, they've been pretty bloody good actually. 31 points over the last three. At 6,200 for Dirk, I'd probably more look at him as a GPP sort of a player. He's at 61 on DraftKings, the same sort of situation. Marquise Chris is at 46. I love the upside there. He's actually playing fairly more consistent minutes, 30 points in the last game, but still just a 22-point average over his last five probably precludes him from being a cash option. At power forward again, actually no, they've changed. Have they changed Alan Williams? Or is he still a power forward? I'm trying to find. No, he's changed. He's now a centre. So let's go to centres. Alan Williams is at $5,600. The numbers have been pretty good. The minutes are a little scary for him though. Just 22 minutes for 34 points in the last game. So the production's still through the roof. And at 5,600, that's a price dip. I would be okay with using him. At 65 on DraftKings, that's probably getting too high. I'm not that interested there. Alex Lenz at 45. I've liked what he's done, but not enough at 4,500. While Nerlens Noel, we don't know if he's playing. We don't know what his role is going to be. So that's just multiple red flags screaming at me there. With Nerlens, we are getting through this, guys. There are 3 games to go. The next game we're going to talk about is Atlanta. They are taking on the Memphis Grizzlies. The Grizz are favored by 5, and the total is 202 points. Chandler Parsons should be back after his planned recovery day, the last game, so that'll force Jimenez back to the bench. In terms of Memphis's rotations, who knows? Who knows what Fizdale's going to do? Who knows which DMPCD player he's going to bring from nowhere into the starting lineup? Maybe it's Deontay Davis. Who knows what's going to happen, because his rotation is up in the air and the team is flailing and he is not a good coach. At point guard, Mick Conley is at 7,700. He is a good player, and he has a very, very tasty matchup. And the fact that they dropped his salary by $300 is enticing to me. So I do like Mike Conley there at that price. At 79 on DraftKings, I'll probably leave it. But at 77 on FanDuel, sure, sign me up. I really like that. Now, I would love Dennis Schroeder, but he's at 7,100, and he takes on the Grizzlies. So that takes a little bit of the upside away from Schroeder. That's FanDuel. DraftKings, they're having none of that. They're saying, ooh, who cares? We are dropping Schroeder. We're going hard. We're slashing $600 off his price, and now he's $6,200. And I say to that, cool. I will have that. I will have that in bucket loads. He's averaging 37 over his last 5. The problem is he hasn't had a start against Memphis, or he hasn't had a real good run at it against Memphis. So you can't look at his past performances all that strongly. He is in great form. I like it here a lot for Den at that $6,200 price tag over on DraftKings. Tone Douglas, no. Andy Harrison, he's starting, but who cares? At shooting guard, Timmy Hardaway is at 5,700. I still can't get my head around relying upon him as a consistent player, but I love the GPP upside at 5,700. I think there's value there. 53 on DraftKings as well. He's averaging 32 points over the last 5 on FanDuel, so there is some value there for Tim. Tone Allen, no, not at that price. And the small forwards, Tarbo's at 39, so been demoted back to a bench role. Obviously, I can't do it for Tarbo. I just don't think that's a great spot to use him at that sort of a salary. Well, Chandler Parsons is minimum. Can you take a punt on Chandler? The matchup is good. I reckon he's a GPP option. It sounds dumb because he's been terrible, but say on DraftKings, the last game he played, he put up 20 points. If he gives you 20 points at $3,400, I think you consider that a win. So I think that Parsons should be included in GPP situations. Kent Bazemore, no thanks. Vince Carter, no thanks. At power for JaMychal Green, Paul Millsap, 7,900. Really bad matchup for Millsap, but 7,900 is too high. Not FanDuel, DraftKings,
Giggity.
6,900. That's good. He's averaging 40 over the last 5. He could easily beat that value even with the negative matchup. So I like that for Millsap on DraftKings, especially not so much over on FanDuel. Ersan Ilyasova and Zach Randolph, I don't have any interest in them. At center, we've got Marc Gasol at $8,000. The Dwight Howard matchup is not a positive one for Mark, and $8,000 is a lot, so I will pass. He's at 74 on DraftKings, so that's a little bit more interesting for Gasol. Probably more just a GPP play, but I don't think it's a terrible cash game situation. Whereas Dwight at 6,400, Against Mark, no. Sorry, Dwight, that's just too high for me. And over on FanDuel, it's worse at 7,100. All right, let's move on to the next game now. We have 2 games left to go. It's the Washington Wizards against the Portland Trailblazers. The Blazers are favored by 2.5, and the total is 226 points here. Point guards, let's get into those. Dame versus John. Dame Lillard is at 8,700. Just a GPP guy. You know the story. I actually played him in cash the other day. It didn't work out all that. It wasn't too bad. It didn't work out great for me though. But in general, I look at him as a GPP option. Where John Wall's at 10.7. That's probably a little bit too highly priced for John actually on FanDuel at that price. He's been playing well, but not quite to that level. 10.7 is high, and the Blazers, especially with Yusuf Nurkic around, are really impacting what point guards can do. So that's a little bit of a concern. I think both of them I look at as more of cash plays, or sorry, more of GPP plays on both sides. Brandon Jennings and Shabazz Napier, I don't think we need to worry too much about them. At shooting guard, Braddles Beals at 7,600, crushing it at the moment. You really like using him on both sides. You have no problem considering using him. CJ McCollum at $7,000. Probably just a GPP option at this point on both sides. There's definite upside there, but he hasn't been very consistent, or not consistent enough to be a cash game option. Alan Crabb's had a couple of strong games in a row, but I don't trust him at all. GPPs for Crabby at 3,800, but yeah, not strong on a 12-game slate. Small forward, Mo Harkless, 4,800. Mo has been decent. I think you can consider Mo a cash play, but not really with too much GPP upside. Whereas Otto Porter at 5,900, yes, he's been pretty good the last couple. I still don't trust that he's going to get enough touches to maintain that level of value, especially not on DraftKings where he's at 6,200. That is just too high for my liking. Bojan Bogdanovic at 43, cooled off a little bit recently. Still got the GPP upside. Obviously, the opportunities are there, but the production is not always there. Do not trust Bojan for any cash lineups. At power forward, Al-Farouq Aminu is at 5,200. I don't feel great about him there. It is a good matchup. I just don't feel it for Big Farouk. For Chief, Markieff Morris at $6,000. The numbers for him have been disappointingly poor. I would consider him a GPP option, but really don't feel great about it. Don't feel strongly about him at all. At center, Yusuf Nurkic, yes, it's chasing points a bit. 6,800 is decently high, but I don't think that it's outrageous to consider him. 67 on DraftKings as well. One of the best centers on the board. He's not going to drop 80 like he did in the last game. I feel pretty good about that, but I still feel pretty good that he can get 35 or maybe even close to 40. Good spot for him. Jan Mahinmi, Marcin Gortat, I can't feel confident in using either of those players. If you want to take a punt on someone, Mahinmi at 39 in GPP is fine, but it's definitely not a great spot for him there. Let's move on now to the last game of the night. It's Denver. They take on the Sacramento Kings. The Mike Malone Bowl is back in action. No spread currently released for this game. Ken Fareed is questionable for Denver, and for Sacramento, Tyreek should return, but we also have to consider Garrett Temple questionable. We saw the last time the Kings had a back-to-back Sunday-Monday. Tyreek sat out the first one, Garrett sat out the second one. We haven't heard any word as to whether that will be the case moving forward, but you have to consider that Garrett might not play, therefore giving a bump to guys like Ty Lawson, Tyreek Evans, Buddy Hield. The shooting guard situation, though, is just a complete shit show. Let's talk point guards. Darren Collison's at 5,400. Point guards have done very well against Denver. We've seen that. Collison in particular has got a 35-point average the last 3 times he's played. You cannot trust what Jaeger will do. But Collison feels a little bit more trustworthy than some of the other players. So I would consider him. I just wouldn't consider him in cash. At 57 on DraftKings, he takes away a bit of his upside. The Blue Arrow, Jamal Murray, is at 3,700. Yeah, probably not. Jameer Nelson, no. Ty Lawson, yeah, don't think so for Ty. The numbers are well down, especially after it seems to have coincided with the news of the warrant for his breaking probation, and you have to think that some of that is having an impact on Ty Lawson. At shooting guard, Tyreek returns, but he also returns at a massive price, 5,900. Yeah, he had 36 points the last time he played against the Spurs. But we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what his role is going to be on a night-to-night basis. And 5,900 is a lot of money. 5,400 for him on DraftKings gives me great GPP upside. But you just don't know what sort of a role that that Jaeger's going to give him on a nightly basis. Gaz Harris is at 5,600. Yeah, I think there are better options out there than Gaz. He's at 56 on DraftKings as well. Yeah, definitely not bad, but not sky high, while Farton Will Barton, no thank you. Bud Heald had a solid game today. He's a $4,000 player, but GPPs only. Aaron Aflalo, Garrett Temple, not really interested in those guys. At small forward, the Rooster at 6,600. He's just not someone that I care for. And at 6,000 on DraftKings, I like him as a GPP play on DraftKings, to be honest, at that price. I just don't like the FanDuel salary for him. Like him as a player, of course. Wilson Chandler is at 7,000. Sorry, Wilson, that is too high. At power forward, Will Cauley-Stein at 5,200. You could have a monster like he had here, or a turd like he had in the last game. So at 5,200, you know what to do. GPPs, great matchup against Denver. Really a good opportunity for him to put up some good numbers. But trusting what he can do, not just from a minutes perspective, but from a level of play perspective, is pretty tough to do for Cauley-Stein. Anthony Tolliver, no. Ken Farid, no. Scalabissiere, also no. At center, this is where it's happening. We have... Actually, let's go back. Rewind. Nikola Jokic is still a power forward on FanDuel. He's at $10,100. He just came out today and just lazily almost dropped a triple-double in his first game back in 27 minutes, had 47 points. How can you not love him at $10,100? He's at 10-3 on DraftKings. I think he's value on both sites. Now for the centers. Costa Koufos went from a consistent 24-minute roll, double-doubles, to playing 18 today. He's at 4,400. Former team, weak in terms of you're giving up points to big men. Costa is a GPP option, but not strong. At 39 on DraftKings, I do like the upside, but again, how can you trust what's going to happen with Sacramento? Whereas Mason Plumlee probably out of the discussion now that Nikola Jokic is back. Let's now roll onto the picks of the day. On FanDuel, Shawnee Livingston 3,500, Mick Conley at 77, and Russ at 12.7. Shooting guards Ian Clark at 3,500. Brattles Beal at 76 and Yanni at 11.3. Small forwards Matty Barnes at 42, Mallows at 76. Power forwards Dave West at 35, Aaron Gordon 56 and Nikola Jokic at 10.1. And for the centers, Zaza Pachulia 43, Yusuf Nurkic 68, and Karl Anthony Towns 10.6. On DraftKings, Livingston 32, Schroeder 62, and Westbrook 12.5. Shooting guards Ian Clark 3,000, Timmy Hardaway at 53 and DeMar DeRozan 84. For the small forwards, Pat McCaw at 33, Tyreek at 54, and Yanni at 10.1. Power forwards, Barnesies at 33, Matt that is, Paulie Millsap at 69, and Boogie at 10.1. And at centre, Zaza at 35, Yusuf Nurkic at 6,700, and Tone Davis at 9,900. Let's move on now to the Aussies. Moneyball, Shawnee Livingston 35, Dennis Schroeder at 68, and Kemba Walker at 84. Jan Clark at 35, Gaz Harris at 51, and small forwards Matty Barnes 44, Mo Harkless 51, and Yanni at 10.3. Power forwards Dave West 35, Marvin Williams 57, and Tone Davis 11.6. And at centre, Will Cauley-Stein at 47, Yusuf Nurkic 7,000, and Boogie at 10.2. On DraftStars, Shawnee Livingston 5,000, Lord Alfred at 11,050, Mick Conley at 14,350. At shooting guard, Jan Clark at 5,000, Gaz Harris at 94, and Kyrie at 17.1. John Simmons at 5,000, Asa Gordon at 97, and Yanni at 19,000. Dave West 52, Greggy Munro 10.3, and DeMarcus at 19,950. And at centre, Costa Koufos 7,100, Yusuf Nurkic 12,150, and Townsy at 18,750. We're done. Monster Show. Hopefully you guys get your entries in for the contest, which should be announced tomorrow. Follow me on Twitter at redrock_bball, and of course at Bask Monster, which is BASKMONSTER, because some absolute small dick has gone out there and created a fake Basketball Monster account, and about 10 minutes before lineups lock, he tweets out that the player that everyone wants to know whether they're in or out, he's done. Bledsoe's out, Jokic is out, John Wall's out. Just before lock, he's only got like 2 followers, but somehow the tweet seems to follow other people. I'm trying to get him shut down at the moment, but just go and report it. His Twitter account has 2 R's at the end. He must have just an absolutely inverted penis to be as ridiculous as that. Ends up has cost people money because people have seen that. Go and follow the actual Basketball Monster account, which again, Basketball Monster with Bask Monster with 1 R at the end, and report this other cocknut. I don't even know what that word is. Cocknut. There you go. That's what he is. We're done. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya. Dwayne Wade.